That's all things that we know are good for us, but do we often take the time to do them? Probably not.
The acronym is called SHAMAN. And so S is for sleep. And that is just recognizing that we need to invest in sleep.
Literally no questions at all. I'm just loving everything that you're saying, and I'm loving that you're here.
Oftentimes people feel like, oh, I can't afford to buy that new supplement or that new thing that's out there. And by simply subtracting and doing some of these practices like with shaman, it's essentially free.
I feel like we're introducing like the magic key to like all moms before even the women that aren't moms yet. It's like you've got this in your back pocket for whenever that moment comes. Today's guest is someone we're genuinely so excited to introduce, especially because this is our first conversation with someone we didn't already know personally. And honestly, we couldn't have had a better fit. We're joined by Jodi Scott, founder, educator, and advocate whose work sits at the intersection of real food, skin health, nervous system regulation, and hormone balance. Her approach to wellness is deeply grounded, intuitive, and rooted in helping women reconnect with their bodies without extremes or overwhelm. She's the co-founder of a plant-based skincare company and has built multiple brands focused on women's health, all centered around transparency, nourishment, and something we talk about a lot in this episode, removing what's not serving you instead of constantly adding more. Quick heads up before we dive in, you may notice a few camera and audio hiccups on Ellie's end throughout this episode. We did have tech working against us, but this conversation was just way too good not to share. So we appreciate you sticking with us through it. In today's episode, we're diving into healing without extremes, the connection between what we put in and on our bodies, and how to actually support yourself through stress, motherhood, and the in-between seasons of life without constantly feeling like you need to do more. And if you want to connect with Jodi, learn more about her work, or explore her products, all of her social media links and website will be linked in the podcast description just for you. If you've ever felt like you're doing all the things but still feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or stuck in that constant go, go, go mode, this episode is going to feel like a deep exhale. So before we get into everything, Jodi, could you just share a little bit about your journey, both personally, professionally? Like, how did you get into this work? How did you get into these businesses that you're running? Just really tell us everything.
My goodness, so much there. Well, I got my master's in health psychology, specialized in psychoneuroimmunology, was pre-med, and was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model. So what does that mean?
Exactly.
So I really wanted to improve healthcare rather than physicians simply prescribing, get more information from the patient to be able to move whatever that intervention is to move forward. And so it could be as simple as, do they have a support system? What is their diet like? And can they pay their bills? And those little data points can be very helpful to provide resources along with the prescription. And then my sister's an herbalist and a midwife. And we've always been passionate about clean ingredients. And we were athletes. So food was fuel, and performance very much was related to how we slept, how we were eating. And so we made that connection early on in life. What was interesting with like our aha moment in starting Green Goo and really like that wellness journey in terms of our first business together was I was pregnant and I got a cut. And I went to my first aid cabinet, which, by the way, was an absolute disaster. Like all first aid cabinets, you open it, you're like, oh, what is this? Half of it's expired. You're like, should I even be using this? But I read the ingredients because I had not read the ingredients in a long time. And I looked at this topical antiseptic and I was like, ooh, I don't want to put this on my body. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to put this on my child. Like, why do I think this is the only answer? So I went back to my sister, who's like an absolute purist. And I was like, do you use this stuff? She's like, I do. And I'm like, whoa, if you're using it, then there's something really interesting here. And what we found is we weren't alone. The natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they thought that these one-time use chemical-laden solutions were the only products that could get the job done. And we also have this idea that if it didn't sting, burn, or dry it out, it must not be working. And then we found that chronic skin conditions are at an all-time high. And the conventional consumer was less interested at the time around ingredients and just wanted better efficacy because it wasn't just about cuts and scrapes and poison ivy anymore, like these acute skin conditions. It was chronic skin conditions like eczema and different kinds of flare-ups and chronic pain. And the solutions that are available today are use 7 to 10 days. If symptoms persist, go see your physician. And they often do. And so I thought, what if we can make a plant-based solution that is first superior in efficacy, so it meets everyone where they're at, and oh, by the way, clean ingredients, remove all the harmful stuff, all the endocrine disruptors, all the yuck, and bring some sustainability. So Green Goo was born, and that was just sort of the benchmark of so many clear moments in terms of improving consumer packaged goods that were just considered okay for people and bringing that awareness to all of them.
I think I can speak for a lot of us that we have no idea what is in our first aid kit and cabinet, and they are all terrible. I know for me, it's dry season. My hands are awful. And I was like, I need to wrap my hand in something. And I think I threw away half of what was in there because, again, it's expired. It's disgusting. And what even really is it? I know what I've been using has not been great. So I love that we're having this conversation and that you brought up endocrine disruptors. That's something that Ellie and I have been talking about a lot, and just something that we're always diving into. So could you elaborate more on like what those are for some people that might not know?
Absolutely. And sadly, they're in so much of what we consume today. So to give a little history around these endocrine disruptors, these are man-made chemicals that have only been around for about 100 years. And of course, I don't think anyone intended to hurt anyone when these ingredients were made. They were part of the Industrial Revolution when all of a sudden we had manufacturing facilities that could mass produce to the public. And we didn't have the transportation that we have today, the technology, the infrastructure. We didn't have Amazon and same-day shipping. And so it took sometimes years for products to get to people's households, along with the fact that there was this idea that more volume meant more value. So they would fill it with water, which meant then they had to put alcohol and parabens and phthalates and these other synthetics that they made to stabilize the formula because they didn't want to send something to you that would be moldy by the time it got there. And so, only about 15, 20 years ago did we start to recognize that these chemicals, the phthalates, the parabens, the petroleum, the forever chemicals, were actually having an adverse reaction in our bodies. And today we know without any doubt, the data is there to support these are endocrine disruptors. And so they're in your shampoo, they're in plastics, they're in a lot of our cooking where they're skincare, our first aid especially. Our first aid has a lot of this. And so what that does as an endocrine disruptor is that it either mimics or inhibits your natural hormone production. So when it gets absorbed through the skin then stimulates or tells the endocrine system, hey, I don't need to make this hormone because this is already here. Or it tries to compensate for the hormone that it thinks is being produced. In addition to that, our microbiome is getting compromised as well. So things like petroleum base that is suffocating our skin. So an example would be like Vaseline, something of like that nature. And the alcohol and other drying agents that are in our skincare products. Our microbiome is actually a living organism on our skin that communicates to our endocrine system to then produce the proper amount of hormones that's needed for homeostasis. So when our microbiome gets compromised, that naturally stimulates our endocrine system. Hey, we're in a state of fight or flight. And what's interesting about that is all of these things, the endocrine disruptors disrupting our microbiome, is that our skin is not just our largest organ. It is born from the same embryonic tissue as our nervous system. It is rich in neurotransmitters, and it immediately communicates to all of our internal systems. So it's not just protecting our organs, it is communicating to our other systems what to do. So then your endocrine system is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't produce this hormone, or I need to produce another hormone. But then our cortisol goes up because our nervous system is like, we're in a state of fight or flight. And then our immune system's like, oh, inflammation. And inflammation doesn't necessarily mean just like body aches. Inflammation can manifest itself in a lot of different ways in our bodies. It can be skin conditions, it can be stress, and it can interrupt your sleep because then it impacts your serotonin, which then, in fact, it impacts your sleep. So you see this negative feedback loop that is happening. And it's not because of one-time use of these endocrine disruptors. It is compounded use, because if you think about how we use our personal care, we're using it on a very consistent basis. And that compounded use adds to that feedback loop, that negative feedback loop. So the beauty of this, not to scare everyone, is more we have an incredible opportunity to subtract, to just simply eliminate those ingredients, and you will all of a sudden start feeling the difference. Of course, I'm going to advocate for now we want to feed our skin and fill it with all these plant properties and build that microbiome back up so you can contribute to that positive feedback loop. But first and foremost is eliminating those ingredients in your life.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I want to get farther into once we, get into this conversation, is the thought of subtracting rather than adding. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I have to do more this, more that. And they don't think about like the benefits of subtracting things and reducing, the exposure to some of these ingredients.
When starting your business, how did it make you feel to learn that the products that were supposed to be helpful to us were actually harming us?
That's a great question. And it made me sad, and it made me feel violated, and it made me feel misinformed, because we have known that these ingredients are harmful for more than a decade. And unfortunately, they continue to be allowed in products. And I think in the general sense, so many people just don't know this information. And that's why I find these platforms so important to share, because every time we purchase, we vote. And by voting what is in the most demand, it therefore forces the bigger companies to change the ingredients that are in their products. And that's really, truly, at this point, the most impactful way we can have on shifting this, because we are allowed to have these ingredients in our products. There's nothing that violates that from a consumer standpoint.
Other than skin conditions, what are some things that you're seeing? And granted, I don't know, are you in a practicing space right now? But like, what are some of the things that you're seeing people kind of struggling with when it comes to like symptoms or things that are just popping up that maybe didn't used to pop up before these ingredients were really a thing, if that makes sense?
I'll get people who will reach out to me and be like, I'm 50 years old and I've never had eczema, and now I've got eczema. What is happening? And it's like that chemical load has finally just like hit its max. And so oftentimes what comes to me is going to be lack of sleep, inflammation, and skin conditions and how they're manifesting in that. And the beauty is that by investing in your skin and giving it those nutrients that it needs, building that microbiome, getting rid of the chemicals that are not serving it, can actually have a holistic impact on all of that. Because again, contributing to that positive feedback loop and eliminating the friction, because that's what it is. It's like our body knows what to do. But by imposing all of this friction on a regular basis, it's going to be in a state of fight or flight. Like I tell my daughter, I'm like, do you know when you are scrolling on your phone, you're actually stimulating your skin, which is stimulating your cortisol, because your skin, again, is this like massive communicator. It's like, it is so rich in neurotransmitters. And we often just disregard the skin as having that role in our overall wellness and mindset. Because when you think about that, positive versus the negative feedback loop that happens is that when you have inflammation, then all of a sudden you don't have clarity. Like that can show up, like not like having a foggy brain, feeling like you're always in fight or flight, like you're stressed. That cortisol goes up. Well, that serotonin goes down. The sleep ends up being compromised, and you get into what a lot of us call, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more than just fight or flight. I would say like burnout. It's like more in that burnout phase where your body is tired, but your brain just keeps going. And it's so interesting how that inversion happens. And like when you are in a state of homeostasis, it's almost like the opposite. It's like your mind is calm and your body is energized. You have the energy to do the things that you want to do. And that's that like optimal state that we all thrive for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you kind of brought up the energy thing, because I think that's something a lot of women struggle with, because we're doing all the things, we're managing all the things. The to-do list running through our heads are just like astronomically long. And I can only imagine, I know you had said you had built the Green Goo company with your mom, with your sister, and had even gone through a season where you lost that and then you ended up getting it back. So can you tell us how that kind of worked throughout your body, your nervous system, through just any symptoms you were experiencing, but also how you were able to persevere and become a better leader and, keep striving to get to where you're at today?
It was a ride. So we basically went from a kitchen business to 150,000 points of distribution very quickly. Like we were growing the herbs
Wow.
in our backyard. We're drying the herbs on old screen doors. We're infusing in our kitchen. We even had to get like put up our camping equipment to have an outdoor kitchen to cook our food because the production was so wild. And all of a sudden, stores are reaching out to us and we have no idea how to build a business, right? So there's also that learning curve. And we were making plant-based first aid. Nobody knew the term plant-based when we started. I went to a national pharmacy buyer and I was like, I have a plant-based first aid. And he was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, how do those things even go together? I'm like, I promise it works. And there wasn't the science that we even have today because there wasn't the funding out there to say, hey, this botanical research shows that calendula can do X, Y, and Z. So not only was I going from retailer to retailer, traveling all the time, but I also was going to conferences. I was going to trade shows because so much of what we were doing was educating people on botanical research and how these plants could in fact work. And so I was gone like 3 weeks out of the month. Plus I had a 2-year-old. And so I was in just a constant state of fight or flight, and then you're in that like mindset. Like when I'm at work, wherever I was at, I wanted to be home with my daughter and my husband. And then when I'm home, I was thinking of the 1,001 things that I needed to get done for the company. And so you're never really present. You're just always thinking of what else you need to be doing or what you want to be doing. And you're coming across new obstacles every day because you're building a company incredibly fast in a space that is ripe for disruption, and you are the disruption, but you're forging the path. And so fast forward, the pandemic happens, and we're essentially all retail. Like you have poison ivy, you go to your local pharmacy, and all of a sudden no one's going into stores. And so we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to like terminate our entire team of like 50 people that we worked so hard to build this company. And we very quickly pivoted to an online business. And that was tough when the rest of the world is trying to ship products to consumers incredibly fast. The infrastructure was not there for massive online businesses, same day grocery. And this is where that shift really happened. And it was incredibly difficult to get packaging. So if you didn't have the money to pay up front for containers, you didn't get the containers. And if you didn't pay 3 to 4 times X what they were worth, you also didn't get them because there was massive negotiations happening at the table. So as a mom and pop competing with the biggest players, we were often left with just a handful of different containers to fill. So it was very challenging. We got it done. I had team members shipping, my family. We were shipping till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. I would drop off pallets to employees' houses so that they could ship boxes. And it was beautiful and chaotic all at the same time. Like, there's something also that's really special about the fact that we were able to succeed at it. However, our adrenals were shot, let alone our ability to weather another storm. We were like, if we get into a situation where this happens again, we will not weather it. I watched so many friends' businesses fail, and especially mom and pops. And the bigger players who are the leaders in the OTC space are very well insulated from these kinds of situations. So that's when we started looking for financial partners. And the short version of the story is we weren't intending to sell. The idea was that we were going to find the financial support. We found a plant-based portfolio company where we could be rolled into it. So we were very much a part of the organization, but we didn't, quote unquote, own the company. And unfortunately, they faced a number of legal and financial issues that happened during that time. And ultimately, I had less than 24 hours to terminate my entire team. The team that we had worked so hard to protect, including my mom and sister, my husband, my brother-in-law, employee number one, my best friend from college who had changed careers to come and work for us. And it was utterly devastating. So now we've been in this state of fight or flight. Our purpose every day was fighting for not just this company, but this mission. Like, we are so passionate about reinventing first aid and bringing clean personal care products to the world. And all of a sudden it's gone. And talk about nervous system shot.
Right?
Not to mention, oh, yes. And then being in a state of anxiety, how are you going to pay your bills? But then also being in a state of depression of like, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like, you were just like overwhelmed with paralysis. And I'll pause there in case you want to ask any questions before we go into sort of the slow pivot to work our way out of this moment.
Ellie, do you have any questions?
I do, and I don't want to jump back too far, but I do just want to jump back to the process of starting the business and learning what herbs did what and the research behind that and how you guys kind of maneuvered that.
So my sister being a certified herbalist and midwife, this was critical to the herbal wisdom. And so they're actually, when she was going to herb school, she met a mentor who had been making medicinal topical therapeutics for more than 30, 40 years. She was like the local herbalist. And she's the one who taught my sister, who we ultimately purchased those formulas from her and then built off of those formulas. And so that was a good starting point. And then me having my Western medicine, organic chemistry insights, we were able to marry those two in terms of formulating. But at that time, it was very much that ancient wisdom and anecdotal moments. So meaning like going to the farmer's market and us being like, okay, so, and here's just a really interesting example. We're formulating and we wanted it to be versatile and portable because like that first aid cabinet story, I was like, we are cleaning out people's first aid cabinets. Like, we want to have 4 products instead of 30. And one of the things that we observed is when you look at a first aid set, it's like, here's something for a cut, here's something for anti-itch, here's something for pain, here's something for bleeding. We're like, let's put that all in one first aid solution. And when you think about what's really interesting is when you have a blister on your foot and you have a cold sore, they're very two different things on why they showed up. But how they show up on your body, how they present themselves are very similar in terms of how the body responds. And so we looked at that in terms of selecting our herbs to say, okay, we believe that these herbs are going to emulate or stimulate the body to do X, Y, and Z. And it's going to work the same way on the blister as it does a cold sore. And so that was very much part of the formulation process. Now, maybe 3 or 4 years into it, the FDA started doing botanical research and then recognizing herbs as having active ingredients. And so we were one of the first herbal companies to register with the FDA. And what was really cool is that we were like so much more advanced than where the FDA was at that time. You know, they were only calling calendula an astringent. We know it does a whole lot more, but we have to only, on the packaging, we can only identify calendula as the way the FDA recognizes it. And a few years later after that, the Farm Bill passed. And what was interesting about the Farm Bill in the US is that it opened up the floodgates for botanical research to be funded to have value in the marketplace. Because all of a sudden, hemp has the ability to potentially heal and support our system. And then it was like, well, wait a minute, what about some of these other plants? Could they also? And I'll never forget being at I was like at a pharmacy trade show, and they did a lunch meeting on how all of these major retailers could market and understand hemp. So they were talking about how to process it, how to market it, why it works for as a analgesic, and so not just pain relief, but like healing the body. And I was like, now people understand plants. So they came to my booth, and I was like, you remember that lunch meeting we just had and what hemp is doing? That is what we're doing at Green Goo. We just don't have hemp in our products, but same concept. And so all of those little things really helped elevate and support what was pretty cool, what we were already doing.
I personally love how versatile it is, because just the other night I was using it for my husband who had a burn on his arm, but then I was also using the product just for underneath my eyes as a eye cream.
Yep. It's so great to be able to like clean out your first aid cabinet and be like, this is like head to toe first aid and also my beauty skincare. Like it's so wonderful and so versatile and works.
That's something that I need to do, because after I did my purge, I say every year I get crunchier, of like, my eyes are open to a little bit more. I'm not buying things that I used to buy. And like first aid, my daughter is 1.5. Like pretty soon she's going to be having the scrapes, the bumps, the bruises, the cuts. And then like, I'm going to need to have things on hand. So I will definitely I passed off all the not ingredients, the products that you had sent to Ellie. So they're in her home right now, but I'll have to go buy my own.
I will get you some, because especially for the kiddos, like the fact that it's safe for your kiddos and your pets. Like my daughter would always call it goo goo for her boo boo. And because it slows down the bleeding, speeds up the healing, and takes the sting and the itch out. So you think about when a kiddo gets a scrape, they're like super upset because it's such an intense moment in how that feels for them. The Band-Aid's not doing anything for them. It's just literally a ritual to help them move through that moment. And the reality is with Green Goo, it actually does take the sting and the itch out. And they can have the autonomy to use it. So you can just give them the tin of goo when they get it, and they'll ask for it, and they'll put it on because they know it's soothing and it feels so good. And you would never give your kid like something from the OTC space and be like, here you go apply.
Right. Like that needs to be locked up.
Yeah, truly.
That's really funny.
I also love to like make a lot of my own foods and products, and just with all clean ingredients. And I love that I don't even have to make this. I can just buy it off of you guys.
And to add to that, what bums me out about what people get on the market today, when it is even clean ingredients, is they're only getting a fraction of the botanical profile. So a lot of what people know today as being natural is like a plant that has been extracted, exposed to high heat, denatured because of alcohol or chemicals. And so you're only getting like a fraction of that botanical profile. And so Green Goo is like whole foods. It is whole plant. And we still bring the whole plants to our manufacturing facility the same way we did in our kitchen, and take it through that unique extraction process to protect the integrity. And to your point, like, yes, you could absolutely make this at home. You just want to give it the love that it needs so that you protect that medicinal profile so that you can get the benefits. Because that's really the secret, is like, it's not just the plants that we use and then the plant-based oils that the skin loves to drink up, but it's protecting that plant.
Before we hop into the rest of the kind of coming up story, I want to take a little pivot and ask you, while you're going through all those stressful times, while you're traveling so much and just wondering like what's happening with my business, where is this going? How did you take time and how did you make the time to take care of yourself? Like, were you taking time for yourself? Were you caring for yourself, or were you really just letting life take the handlebars?
I mean, I was doing a good job, but what I know today, I would definitely tell my younger self, like, you're only at 20%. Like, I was exercising, I was eating healthy. I actually even was taking our salve, and it was a customer who gave me this insight. She was Jane Doe #1, and she was pulled from the World Trade Center and sustained horrible injuries. And she became addicted to opioids. And she started using our product to help her with her opioid withdrawal. She was like, it's the only thing I can use. And she was using it from head to toe, our pain relief. And she's like, it's just calming my body. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I started using the pain relief before flying. And I would butter up from head to toe because I was like, if I could, and I didn't know I was managing my inflammation as much as I recognized that it was calming my body, and I felt more resilient when I was traveling. Like when you travel, you just like don't drink enough water, or you feel, run down or whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm noticing this difference. So it was definitely, there was some level of awareness in terms of being healthy, but I also was like in such go mode and so not present, and giving my body too much friction, all of that cortisol. And eventually that just wears you down. I mean, I would get sick when I would get sick, I was like down for the count, and it would just drag on and on and on. And so when we hit rock bottom, that for me was when I learned what it really meant to be resilient. Because prior to that, my definition of resilience was just like do. Like us moms especially, it's like I had so much guilt around if I wasn't doing enough and if I wasn't committing enough. And then, we talk about that subtraction and our energy being expansive and being protective of it. I was not protective of it at all. And I think when you're in that state, you're also less efficient. Like when you think about like you're in that do and you just keep crossing it off the list. And sometimes that's not the most efficient way to get things done. Like you end up wasting a lot of energy on things. And so when the sale, happened and everybody was let go and production stopped and, the business came to a screeching halt. My mom, sister, and I were sitting at the kitchen table and we were reminiscing and I pulled out my lip balm and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to run out. And then I was like, Mom. And then I was like, the skin repair, which I can't live without. Like it goes up head to toe and especially on my face every night. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we started checking each other's inventory. Mom, what do you have? Jen, what do you have? And then I'm getting emails. My son is a paraplegic. It's the only thing that works. My mom is a diabetic. It's the only thing that works. My son has eczema. And my sister's like, are we going to have to start making this in our kitchen again? Because we can't live without it. And look at these emails. And I just kind of nonchalantly said, we got to buy it back. And of course, we all looked at each other like that's impossible because we lost everything in it. There was no monetary gain, and we lost 15 years of our investments into this. There's no way. And then I remembered I had a meeting with my mentor / coach coming up on Monday, and I'd only been working with him for a few months. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell Timmy I can't show up on Monday. I can't pay him. So I text him, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, hey, this happened. And he goes, Jodi, I will show up every Monday at 5:00 until you don't need me anymore. And in that moment, the interesting thing is that didn't feel good. I felt inconvenient. It felt like one more person I was going to let down because I didn't have the mental capacity to show up because I was in such a state of fight or flight. I was like, I just can't. I can't. And so Monday rolled around, and I wasn't going to go. I was just going to text him. And I thought, Jodi, at least give him the courtesy to show up to that call and just say thank you, but no thank you. So I showed up out of guilt, not because I wanted to. And he goes, Jodi, what are you going to do? And I said, to me, we had this idea that we would possibly buy it back, but there's no way. There's absolutely no way. So yeah, we're at a dead end. And he goes, okay, time to start your mental fitness boot camp. It starts now. And I go, what? And he's like, you're going to set your alarm every 3 hours. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You got me at that. And I'm still in that go, go, go mode. I haven't even processed I'm unemployed. So I don't know why I can't set my alarm every 3 hours. and he goes, and then you're going to do a presence exercise. And I go, oh, what? Like, what is a presence exercise? And he goes, we're going to focus on one of your 5 senses for 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And you're going to do that every 3 hours. And I'm like, Timmy, this is nuts. And he said, Jodi, we are going to get you mentally fit. The same way you work out your body, we are going to work out your mind and your nervous system. And I don't have the answers. You do. We just need to get you mentally fit so that you can find them. And I'm like, Timmy, I need to find someone who has the answers. I need someone to tell me what I need to do right now. No, you don't. You need to get mentally fit. And so, fine, whatever. At this point, I'll try anything. So I set my alarm, and my husband, the alarm goes off. He goes, what are you doing? I don't know. Timmy said I need to set my alarm. And I take my shoes off, and I go outside, and he goes, what? And I go, I'm doing a presence exercise. A what? I want to go listen to the birds and feel my feet on the ground. And so the first time, the second time, the third time, it was super awkward and the thoughts are racing in, and I just really started dropping in with it. And every Monday he would give me more, here are some other sensory exercises that you can do. And most of our conversations focused around that. And it got easier and easier. And then I started to really want to do it and really feel myself getting more grounded. And maybe about 3 weeks into it, I said, we were in the middle of talking, and I said, I have an idea, Timmy. I think I know someone who da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He goes, yeah, you do. There you go. And so then all of a sudden, the clarity and the wisdom and the creativity started to surface, and I started to get more confident in having conversations with various people. And it took us 18 months, but we did ultimately get to buy the company back. And what was so interesting during that 18 months was I could not speed up that process. I had to really be and redefine how I call success and resilience and performance. And it's so much better now. And I would have never thought of leveraging my nervous system to become more mentally fit. And now it's an investment that I make on a regular basis. And I also thought, well, I must not be able, if I don't meditate for 2 hours, I'm not going to get those benefits. And it was really cool to experience and witness what small micro moments compounded can do for you. And especially as women and entrepreneurs and being busy, and then learning how to integrate that into the day-to-day where I don't have to set my alarm anymore. It is literally just a part of me doing all the things that I'm doing, but with a different mindset. And I can feel myself calm that cortisol down and then that positive feedback loop and contributing to it in a way that really serves me well.
That is amazing. And obviously we know that you got it back because we're here, but it's like I was on my toes. I was like, okay, so what happened? You had talked again about the healing through subtraction and getting to that positive feedback loop. So can you really dive into, where that started for you and what that has kind of developed into now and how just the listeners can apply that to their lives?
So we use an acronym at home, and this really started for my daughter in terms of being inundated with all the things, right? And so there's some subtraction in here, and there's also some like not necessarily addition, but it's more awareness around the opportunities. And so the acronym is called shaman. And so S is for sleep, and that is just recognizing that we need to invest in sleep. And so with my daughter, when she starts to feel a little moody, I'm like, how are you adding to the sleep bank? What does your sleep bank look like? And looking at it like from a bank. And that could mean, oh, I've gone so far without not investing in my sleep. Tonight, I'm just going to subtract the things that I think I need to do. And we're all going to call it 8 o'clock, everyone, bedtime. Even if you're just resting in bed, we're not going to do any chores. We're not going to try any more things. We're going to invest in that sleep bank. Or a simple 15-minute nap at your desk. It makes an incredible difference. And then H is hydration. And we are water. We are all water. And so when you think about hydration so that your body can have homeostasis, what are you drinking? What should you not be drinking? What are things that are pulling your hydration out? That can be food. That can be skincare. That can be your beverages. And for my daughter, that's really key when they're being exposed to all the energy drinks and all the things that are constantly being marketed to them. And is that serving? So and for my daughter, I'm like, if she just subtracts one of those energy drinks today, then that is a part of your wellness journey. You can do a lot of other things wrong, but maybe just subtract that energy drink or whatever that beverage is. It's not serving you as water. And then A is antioxidants. And we're constantly being told all these different things that we should do for our diets and what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. And when you just think of antioxidants as simple as that, then when you order some food or you open up the fridge, you might throw in some antioxidants in there. And it might be chips and blueberries, but whatever. You still made some considerations to bring in the antioxidants. And then M is mindfulness. And those are those small mindful moments. Like when you're going to pick up your kiddo from school, maybe instead of scrolling, look at the clouds. Look at them going by very intently. Listen to the sounds. Find one of your 5 senses and spend 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And just choose that. Subtract something else and just choose that to replace it. And then A is avoid, and this is avoiding the ingredients that don't serve you, the phthalates, the parabens, the petroleums, whatever, the food that doesn't serve you. But this is also avoid moments, people, situations, your energy, protect it. And what's interesting is when you give yourself to permission to avoid, all of a sudden you fill it with the joy that serves you in a way that is far more expansive than you ever imagined when you think of that energy and you protect it. And then the last one is N is nature. And that's just finding nature to ground you as much as you can. And those little moments, like the other day, my daughter came home from school and it was so sweet. She went out on the back porch. It was a beautiful day. And she just sat on the back porch for 15 minutes and just soaked it in. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. She's like, can we have dinner out here tonight? I'm like, yeah, you bet we can. Yes. And so shaman's just a nice little North Star that kind of helps not overwhelm you with all the things. And you will find joy in all of that. And then all of a sudden it brings you to presence. And then you find throughout the day, you're just choosing the things that serve you and your orbit, your people, much better.
Yeah. And I can see how that really can kind of regulate your nervous system too, because it's very centering, it's very grounding. The mindfulness, the nature, like that's all things that we know are good for us, but do we often take the time to do them? Probably not. I know there's a lot of busy women, a lot of busy moms that listen to this podcast. So what are some signs that, our nervous system might not be regulated and that we should be leaning into the shaman a little more?
First, from a day-to-day perspective, that's that burnout feeling, right? Your mind is racing and your body is exhausted. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, but you can't turn the brain off. Also, there's that foggy brain where you just feel like there's no clarity and you can't think clearly. And of course, there's some of the more physical manifestations, which is where you're going to have inflammation, physical pain, and and then there's the skin manifestations. Of course, when you start seeing skin flare-ups, whether it's eczema, acne, chronic dry skin, itching, those can all present themselves. And of course, there's also digestion. And we see that a lot too in terms of burnout, where like your digestion is just off. And these are all just little signs of your body saying, "Hey, I need some balance. I need you to remove some friction for me, and maybe perhaps, substitute that with like some goodness, some things that are really going to help stimulate that body into doing what it knows how and what to do and serve you well."
I'm curious because you're talking about like the eczema and the skin kind of conditions that come out from nervous system being dysregulated. What, if any, opinion do you have on like the role that gut health has on it, or is the nervous system gut health kind of like tied together?
They're very much connected. And we're starting to learn more about the neurotransmitters in the gut health and how that's connected to the rest of our bodies and how that connects to the skin. And I think most of the science has just typically been very siloed, right? Like there's this doctor and then there's this research. And today, more of those departments are doing work together. Like the Journal of Behavioral Medicine is doing work with the Journal of Dermatology. And they recently did a study that showed that practicing meditation and mindful moments actually helped reduce inflammation and reduced visible eczema flare-ups. And so you're just going to start seeing more of that data become available, and especially with gut health and how that's related to what we're seeing on the skin and what we're seeing in terms of mental health as well. There's quite a few new like call them herbal hacks that are coming out that are focused on, if you're suffering from depression, spending time on your gut health. And so it's really cool to see more of this holistic approach.
Do you have any questions with that?
Literally no questions at all. I'm just loving everything that you're saying, and I'm loving that you're here.
Well, I'm happy to be here with y'all. Thank you for creating this platform so that we can tell and share more of this information to empower people. Because you know what else, like what I love about shaman and some of these practices is that they're equitable. Like oftentimes people feel like, oh, I can't afford to buy that new supplement or that new thing that's out there. And by simply subtracting and doing some of these practices like with shaman, it's essentially free, or it's mild from a monetary standpoint. And I think that can be really, really powerful for people.
Not only that, I think it's very practical. Like, I don't think you could talk to anyone who could say, I can't do that. Like, I can't buy blueberries at the store. Like, almost everyone's going to be able to buy some blueberries for some antioxidants, or get 15 minutes of sleep, or look at the clouds for 5 minutes. Like, they're all things that anyone could do anywhere, anytime. There's really not limitations to taking the time. It's just practicing taking the time and kind of trading off where they'd be scrolling instead, like making that swap.
I do feel, because it was such a gift, and it wasn't fun, but it was a gift to feel in that moment when Timmy was like, I'll be there every Monday at 5 o'clock for you, but to truly understand what it feels like when you're like, I can't do it. And all I needed to do was show up, right? And I so understand where people are like, I want to feel that way, but I don't know where to start. And that's where I'm like, set your clock, set your alarm on your phone every 3 hours. Try it. Try focusing on one of those sensory experiences. And it's so different than I feel like what we have been told in terms of, mental health and therapy and don't feel this way and do this. And when you can actually just sharpen your nervous system by focusing on the senses, and then it has a positive impact on the rest of the body, like, wow, that's so cool.
So you talked before about the endocrine disrupting hormones, or I guess products and ingredients. what are some of the ones that maybe we haven't discussed already, or maybe some other products or over-the-counter ingredients or products that we should be more aware of as women?
Well, I think it's so interesting because, like, my daughter's dermatologist recommended using things like Aquifer and Vaseline. And, those are just kind of things we think from an everyday solution that we should be using. And yet those are destroying our microbiome. They're sitting on the surface of the skin. They're suffocating it. They're petroleum based. And so it's looking at those ingredients like petroleum, alcohol, which is in a lot of our lotions and a lot of our skincare, and a lot of brands that look like they could be clean ingredients. My daughter uses a app called Yucca, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, but it's so helpful, especially with greenwashing, to be able to put it up to a brand really quickly and see where it rates. Because it can start out with like 3 or 4 plant extracts. So you're getting like a little bit of those plant properties, and then all of a sudden it's like 3 or 4 different endocrine disruptors or drying agents that are harmful for your skin. And when you put on lotion, like you can feel it. Like you put the lotion on and then you're like, why do I need it again? Why do I need it again? And we always joke around with Green Goo, like it might be the most anti-capitalistic business model, because the more you use it, the less you need it, because
Right.
it like builds like such a healthy skin barrier. And I always use the example of like a balloon, when you blow it up and you let a little air out, and you blow it up and you let a little air out, and eventually what that balloon looks like, that's your skin. I would go, that's your skin on drugs. That's your skin on all of these synthetics, because eventually your cells are just sad and then they oxidate. And like these ingredients oftentimes have companion ingredients to give you short-term results, like plumping, and you're like, oh, like overnight your skin's gonna look amazing, and then the next day like it's like super sad because that cell like pushed out, like the water came out of it. And it's always trying to find that homeostasis. And so when you use something like Green Goo, where it's like rich in that botanical profile, it's rich in that natural hydration, and it's keeping your skin in this like beautiful homeostasis, like that balloon just stays like nice and rich and plump. And so you continue to see the benefits, and you don't have that oscillation that's so extreme that we're doing to our bodies, which then stimulates to the rest of the body that you're in fight or flight. And then all of the other systems have to catch up.
I feel like you're targeting my skincare routine right now.
I do have a question. Would you ever say it is too late or someone's too far gone to start switching to plant-based products? Especially if they struggle with skin-related issues such as eczema, or just if they want to repair their skin barrier at any age?
Never too late. Never too late to build the skin barrier, and never too late to stop. Like I've had men even come to me and be like, I started using your skin repair, and they're like in their 60s. And they're like, I've never had anyone compliment me on my skin. And now I'm like at dinner and random people like, your skin looks amazing. It looks like you've been on vacation. And I always say like, that's the beauty of it, where it like looks like you've been on vacation. And back to your point of eczema, like I get more parents that come to me that are like, we're not sleeping. Our kiddo's not sleeping. We've had a flare up for over a year of eczema. We've put everything on. And especially at night, because like, it gets quiet, and that's when the itch is like the worst, right? Like it's like amplified. And I had this mom, it was a handful of weeks ago, and she was like, I'm coming to you only because I heard through the grapevine. We haven't slept in a year. I can't tell you the last time my daughter smiled. Like this flare is the worst. Oh, it's heartbreaking. And she's like, and I also don't believe in natural. Like, why would you even work when nothing else has worked? And she's like, but we're going to try it because we'll try anything. So I was like, take some pictures. Let's see where you are in this phase and stage. And we're going to get really aggressive with which product we need to start with. It's like her itching was so bad. So we were doing both the dry skin and the first aid, because the dry skin, being that it's a first aid and helps take that sting and itch out with wound care. But then the dry skin actually is what's designed for eczema, has actually nervous system calming herbs in it, and then really addresses the inflammation. And then from there, once it gets where you're moving through that like open, irritated, angry wound, then you can switch to the skin repair, which helps calm it, cool it, and then helps with scarring. So I was like, okay, let's see what stages you're at, and then here's where we'll shift. Might be a minute before you shift to the repair. Week 2, she sends a picture. She's like, we're already on the skin repair. She's like, I cannot believe we waited a whole year for this, and it's been 2 weeks. I'm like, keep using the skin repair. Now we've got to continue to feed and nourish that skin. And yeah, it gives me so much joy to be able to provide a solution that works and makes everyone happy and creates long-term skin health.
Yeah, I feel like we're introducing like the magic key to like all moms before even the women that aren't moms yet. It's like you've got this in your back pocket for whenever that moment comes.
You do. It's so funny when you have your portable first aid with you because you're like, oh, I got something for you. Like you're handing it to people all the time. It's like you're just prescribing. And yeah, it's super fun. And then you're like, what did I do before this? I mean, we were out on a hike when my daughter was like 2 and she got stung by a wasp. And I was like, thank goodness we have this because she would be a hot mess and her cheek was huge. And like within 15 minutes, like it was completely calm and she was good. And I was like, whew. Like this would have been a miserable rest of the day. And so a lot of this stuff isn't going to be like, the thing that gets you in the emergency room, but it'll at least like make things more comfortable. Although I hear wild stories. But when we first started at the farmer's market, we had this one guy come up to us. He lifted up his shirt and he was like, I love green goo. He's like, I'm a like whatever mountain biker, there was like a term for it, and he was like, normally when I like eat it, I just stuff dirt in it so I can finish my ride. He's like, now I do green goo. He's like, I had 18 stitches when I got back, but I got to finish my ride. And I was like, whoa.
He sounds hardcore.
He was hardcore. Yeah, I'm like, dirt? I bet your doctor loved you.
I feel like I'm going to be the person who's like, try this. This is great. Like, take some, Oprah, one for you, one for you, one for you. I just hope that, I'll send them to the podcast, of course, but I hope they can appreciate it. Cause I do feel like you said, like holistic wellness is really, I hate to say, more of like a buzzword, I think, at this point. Like I hope it catches the traction that it needs, because that's definitely how I got here. And like I said, I get crunchier every year. But I can just hope that, people want to learn the why, the how, and really buy into it, because ultimately that's what's going to get them down the healthiest route for not only themselves, but like their families too.
You're so right. Like when we first started, we did not lead with we are plant-based, because if we did, people just automatically assumed it must not work as well. Like, oh, that's for people who just care about natural and they're willing to make the compromise, but we know it's not going to perform better. And that really just does come down to, we're back to the Industrial Revolution. And when natural became something that people were interested in, then they needed to fit into the traditional manufacturing process. So of course they were exposing these plants to high heat and extracts and this kind of stuff so that they could mass produce it. And by the time it got to the consumer, it was junk. It was a compromise. And so when we were trying to do our manufacturing, we knew that we were outside of the traditional SOP for manufacturing, and we knew that we needed to keep that process. And if we couldn't keep that process, then we weren't going to be able to scale. And it took a manufacturing facility whose son had eczema. He used our products and he was like, the world needs this. This is the first thing that's ever worked. He's like, we are going to figure this out. And he created a dedicated line with a dedicated team, with a dedicated process for us. And that was huge, because that is like why it works.
That's amazing. Now, when we look at kind of like the motherhood side of things and the nervous system side of things, obviously you're a very busy woman. You wear a lot of different hats, personally, professionally. How do you stay, I would say, aligned, or how do you maintain that balance while doing all of the juggling that you do in your life?
Well, now more than ever, I invest in the presence like I never did before. And it's a non negotiator, but it's not something that requires more time in my day. It just requires more intention, which is so interesting. So rather than like rushing through the shower, I just like feel the shower. Like I appreciate it. When I wake up in the morning, I make sure that I just feel my feet on the ground and I let my nervous system like slowly wake up. I like to watch the sun come up over the horizon, let that natural light in. I do not look at my phone immediately other than turning my alarm off, and I have the light dimmed, on the phone, because so much of your nervous system can get dumped through some of that artificial engagement throughout, or right there first thing in the morning. So making sure that I let my nervous system slowly wake up, and throughout the day, just give presence. It could be as simple as like, today, I went to go take my dogs into the warehouse so that I could come in here so they don't bark. And in that, there's this between the two buildings, there's a beautiful mountain range. And I was like, I'm going to look at that mountain range intently as I walk them over. And just like, and you can feel yourself like calm and get present. And so a lot of that is throughout the day. Like when I'm with my daughter and I've got 10 other things on my mind, it's like really dropping into that conversation and being present with the person that I'm with. And those little things compound throughout the day that just make a huge difference without requiring more time. And of course, all the other things like eating healthy, subtracting, shaman, getting some exercise, all those things are important too.
I think you've inspired me because I've found I love to go on a walk. We live in the country, so we live on a dirt road. We've got woods around us, fields, and just animals everywhere. And when I take my daughter for walks, I don't like to listen to music. I kind of just want to be in nature. And then I like get halfway through my walk and I'm like, have I even had a thought about anything? Like, what have I been doing this whole time? So just having that thought to like look at the woods or look at the field and just focus on being where I'm at, I think will be interesting to see how that impacts just my present and mindfulness in life.
It's wild. When you go on vacation and you're like, this feels so good. I want to feel like this all the time. I tell people like, be a tourist in your own town. Be on vacation in your own body and do that. And when you have those little moments like that, yeah, it's really great. And then when you do go on vacation, it doesn't take 2 days to unwind. You've kind of been like, you've been doing that little adrenal love that like you go right into vacation.
That's so funny. I'm imagining going downtown and just like being super excited at like our somewhat rundown but not rundown town.
Yeah. You can be a tourist. Think about what it's like for the first time people to come through it.
We've been trying to figure out for years how to make people want to come to our town.
You just might now.
I love that. Now, I have a question for you when it comes to, obviously, you've had a lot of practice with being mindful and just, everyone around you, your loved ones, your husband, your daughter, like they just accept that there's these things that you need to do for you. But if you're, even when you got started, if you can remember, or what advice you would give to a woman who maybe needs to draw some boundaries and taking that time for herself, what advice would you give to her to kind of get everyone else around her on board to taking care of herself?
So neurons mirror neurons, and there's a certain reality to put the oxygen mask on first, which goes completely against what moms think, right? Like when they first tell you that on the plane, you're like, no, I want to put this on my kid first. And the reality is that when you invest in yourself in this way, the halo effect happens. One of the greatest gifts of this experience is how it has impacted my husband, how it has impacted my daughter, like the way she went out on the back porch. Not too long ago, she had an exam that I knew she had worked really hard on. And she's like, I picked her up from school and she's like, Mom, the teacher pulled me aside about the exam. I'm like, oh no. And she's like, yeah, right. That's what I was thinking too. And he's like, I need to talk to you about your test. And she's like, uh-oh. And he's like, you did something really interesting. He's like, you rubbed your fingertips together. You took a couple deep breaths and you got in the moment, and then you took the exam and you went through and you addressed the ones you knew how to answer. And then you took a couple deep breaths again and you got present. And then you leveraged what you did know from the first set of problems. And that helped you work through the second set of problems. And he's like, I just really want to applaud you for how you took your test. And she's like, Mom, it was like I was talking to you. And so when you personally invest in this way, the people around you will see it. And even like leadership, I see the difference in my team in the fact that I'm investing in this way. It's a different conversation at work. I would go into meetings and be like, why is no one talking? Why aren't we being productive? But when, of course, I was coming in hot to meetings because maybe I had like an email that threw me off. So then I brought that energy into the meeting, and neurons mirror neurons. So that I would say put the oxygen mask on first and be sharing that story, be sharing those practices and communicating that. And very quickly, the people around you will adopt it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of coming in a little hot every now and then.
Well, and think about when your kid's having a really tough moment, how it triggers your nervous system and you're like, ah, and then it's like, this whole thing's not working. And what's interesting is like, those moments as a parent that when you're like, oh man, I crushed it. The kiddo was freaking out and you came in like calm, collected, present. Then all of a sudden, like there was a different outcome. And it's not easy to stay in that state all the time. But when you invest in yourself outside of the ring, I always say outside of the boxing match, then you can, when you're in that situation where you do get your nervous system triggered, we always say, don't leave your hand on the hot stove for too long. You'll feel it. You'll be like, oop, I reacted. But then it's like, you're able to calm yourself down quicker. And I'll add, so there's this, your vagal tone is your ability to get back into balance with your nervous system. And things like touch and smell help you do that. So that's why Sanctuary Sunday, butter up with the salve, like on a Sunday morning or evening, take that salve and you like the sense of the touch, putting it on you, because it's not just a quick lotion moment, right? Like this is a salve that you need to let your skin drink up. It's got all these wonderful essential oils for the smell. And put your bathrobe on and like read a book, hang out with your kiddo. If you want to do chores, do them, but like let your skin drink it up. And then get ready for the day or go to bed, and you will feel the difference. And those are the little things that like improve your vagal tone so that when you are having one of those hot moments, you can like get present much easier.
Yeah, I think that's like the key to a lot of just problems in life is centering yourself, regulating your nervous system, and bringing a calm energy to things, which I don't know, not that we grew up in like a hot-headed house, but I feel like you don't see that a lot like on social media or just like in movies, and things that we see all the time is like that calming sense. It's like we're coming in hot, we're yelling, we're screaming, we're raising our voices. And I know as a mom, I don't want to be that way.
Well, and it's so cute because my daughter, when she was little, we would talk about Star Wars, and it was like so much of that language you can like model and communicate in a way that they understand in terms of like what it means when there's chaos all around you and you're just like, okay, like I am not reacting to the chaos, like I got this.
Yeah. So if the woman listening to this episode is feeling overwhelmed, maybe she felt a little triggered by some of the things you said, she wants to start taking that action. If she feels behind on her wellness journey, what is one thing you would want her to hear right now?
I would say presence. Start there and subtract whatever that thing is in that moment and focus on one of those 5 senses and give yourself that 30-second relief. And get rid of all the other chemicals in your skincare.
I love that. Well, Jodi, thank you so much for reaching out, for getting connected with us. I know we've had some back and forth. We are so glad that we got to have this conversation with you and really turn us into raving fans of green goo. I think this is something we're definitely going to have in our homes until the day we die, I'm sure. So thank you so much for reaching out and just spreading your message. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. It's a treat to be here with you.
If this episode resonated with you, take it as your reminder that your body isn't broken, it's communicating. So much of what we talked about today comes back to simplifying, subtracting, and actually listening instead of constantly chasing more. If you love this conversation with Jodi, make sure to share it with a friend, tag us on Instagram, or send us a message with your biggest takeaway. We always love hearing what landed for you. And if you haven't already, please review the show, give us a good rating, and tell us what you like about it. Just a reminder, if you want to connect with Jodi or dive deeper into her work, all of her social media platforms and website are linked below in the description. We'll talk to you in the next episode of the Sis Let's Heal podcast.